Michael O'Hanlon is Director of Research for Foreign Policy at the Brookings Institution. Michael, we're just getting the headlines out from this discussion between the two of them, at least what they said publicly. Trump said NATO is a good thing if done properly. He said he could end the war in Ukraine within weeks. Macron says we are ready to provide security guarantees to Ukraine. So what's the significance of this gathering? What are you listening for?
I am listening for constructive language like that. Those are pretty good comments, in contrast to what we've heard most of the last week from the Trump administration with the war of words between Mr. Trump and President Zelensky of Ukraine, President Trump's at least temporary misinformation about who started the war, and a few other things, including a vote at the United Nations that failed to condemn the Russian invasion. So that was all concerning. Talking about NATO as important, talking about having an idea for how to end the war, whether he delivers or not is an open question. But I like that kind of framing, and it suggests a constructive approach. I think President Macron of France, of course, he's dealt with Trump before, president to president, in Trump's first term. And he's also been a proponent, as many French have been historically, of Europe being a stronger pillar in the overall North Atlantic Treaty Organization and, the alliance. And that's good news. If Europeans are willing to put forces on the ground in Ukraine as sort of a guarantor or a backstop to a peace deal, with the United States only having to, let's say, promise to come help in the event of a crisis, that could satisfy, in theory, President Trump's demand that Europe do more, and perhaps even wind up being terms that Putin himself could accept. So we're a long ways from a finish line. And President Trump, if he takes a few months to help end this war, that would still be an accomplishment. So I'm not suggesting he needs to be held to his timeline. And it's not his decision to make all by himself either, by the way. But what I've heard today is good.
Not that you're a stock market analyst, Michael, but it is striking how well the European market has done. And if it were the opposite, if those stocks were selling off and if every time there was a bad headline, that would tell you that the investors were existentially worried about what was going on there, even to the worried about a breakup of the EU and so forth. This seems to be quite the opposite.
Yeah, I hope so, too. Again, things change by the hour with this presidency, and that's part of who Mr. Trump is. It's not like, if one of us were to ask him, would you just be consistent in your messaging so the stock market can figure out which direction to move, he would say no. He's not interested in stability. He's interested in disruption, and he considers that part of his toolkit, and I'm sure it's just part of his personality. So I'm not going to go out and buy a lot of stock based on the idea that now we're close to a resolution of this conflict, but at least the idea of complete American abandonment seems a little further than it was trending last week.
Yeah, so where do you think that leaves politics? Obviously, I heard the Wall Street Journal's Berlin bureau chief say that the outcome in Germany just tells him that the country has lurched to the right, he said, much like the rest of Europe. What does that imply?
Yeah, I talk to my German and German specialist friends at Brookings and elsewhere all the time about this. The fact that the Alternative for Deutschland could win 20% of the German vote when it's a party that basically is anti-Islam, largely anti-foreigner, and even unwilling to criticize the Nazi past in Germany sometimes, that's got to be very concerning. And I don't like it. And it does make you wonder where it's headed. On the other hand, it won 20% of the vote. It didn't win 40%. It didn't win 50%. It's not going to be the lead player in any future government. It probably won't even be in the next government, although that remains to be seen. Because Germany, as you know, has this parliamentary system, but then a chancellor on top, sort of like a prime minister in a sense, but a little different. Anyhow, traditional parties did not do great, but one of them got 29% of the vote, the Christian Democrats, and that'll probably be the party that has the first chance to form a new government, and will probably try to keep the Alternative for Deutschland out. And beyond that, I don't know where it's headed over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If this new, anti-immigrant party is going to keep doing better or not.